the president of the Long Path North has a DR trimmer mower that he mows over 10 miles of trail on his own 2 to 3 times a year.
Wow.
And the guy's in his 70s.
Wow, crazy.
His name's Mark Traver. And there's another guy in Altamont who was up there yesterday, and he has a very bad back and bad knees, and he loads his garden tractor in the back of his truck and brings it up here and mows the trail. And while I don't know how he has this whole scientific method he's engineered about how to get it in and out of the truck without ending up in the hospital. I've tried. I remember one particular day last summer, this 1 mile of trail with me and a push mower, and it took me 3 hours mowing a path down through that. So
wow.
that's one of our challenges: how to get it into the woods and off of farm fields.
The bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains podcast.
All right, so I don't know why it feels like it's only been like a week, but it feels like a couple of weeks, doesn't it? Like it's been a while. I don't know why it said that.
It seems like you got a couple of weeks worth of hiking in over the last few days, so that could explain it.
That's true, but I'm not as active as Steve is here. Steve's like out there every day. Steve, you're gone every day.
Well, the older you get, the more you got to do to stay in the same place.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad you're out and about. So, welcome to episode 133 of Inside the Line, the Catskills podcast. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Long Path 101 with Steve Siegard. Steve is I call him the Long Path entrepreneur, would say that, extraordinaire. I think I put that in there. Steve and Andy are the ones that basically take care of the whole Long Path. And it's amazing what you guys do. So welcome you to the show, Steve.
Thank you. I would just also clarify that the Long Path is kind of divided into different sections for maintenance. And Charlie Goodall manages the Catskills, and he does an incredible job down there. I'm for the section that's from Greene County North, and there's actually other people that manage the like the Appalachian Trail sections and down in Harriman and other areas.
Nice. Well, thank you that's 3 people for 375 miles. So that's a little insane if you ask me.
Yeah.
So we're talking, Steve, you've been doing some recent stuff with rerouting trails and stuff. So did you know that you could now go to college for trail building?
Yeah, I saw an article on that a couple of weeks ago, and it's encouraging that they could develop programs like that. Also shows just how much there is to know that you could. I didn't see if it was a 2 or 4 year program, but they had 50 students in it in the article I was seeing. So that's encouraging that more people are getting to know about trails.
Yeah, it's great to see that this is coming along with the amount of the popularity of hiking now and the amount of help we need with our trails, as Steve would know, rerouting the Long Path to take them off of, walkways and bring them off private properties and stuff like that. It's just like great that they are bringing this to a dream of someone who wants to do this for a living, who wants to get paid for this and wants to help out the other areas. So a lot of people said that this is to build trails is definitely very skilled. You can't just go out there with, a hacksaw, cut something down, and then it's a trail. You have to make it to where the erosion's not going to be significant. You got to make it to where there's mud and stuff like that. You might have to put some steps in there, elevation gain. You have to calculate what could, a rainfall or snowfall do. There's so much into it. So why not go to school for it and become, kind of like a skilled entrepreneur of trail building? Like it's fascinating.
Well, Stosh, the first thing you're going to learn is that you don't use a hacksaw to build a trail.
That's old school. Okay. That's old school.
I don't even think the old schoolers used hacksaws. For those of you who don't know, hacksaws are made for cutting metal.
Whatever.
Yeah. So I'm just.
Okay, I can see how this is going to go.
Yeah. No, I'll pull the reins in later on. Don't worry, Steve. But what I found of interest in this article was that it says the National Park Service and Bureau of Land Management each maintain thousands and thousands of miles of trails. The Forest Service maintains more than 158,000 miles of trails. And then they point out that you can't use machinery like bulldozers, rollers, dump trucks to build these trails. These trails are predominantly built by hand, using hand tools, maybe chainsaws, things of that nature. But you're not going out there with, significant excavation equipment like you would use in road building.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Steve knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the classification of the level of wilderness it is on public lands, what you can use and when. But for most of the work we do with the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, most of the trails, you can only use a chainsaw if it's on state land for about 2 weeks a year. And then there's very specific requirements that is required for the person who's using the chainsaw, as far as certifications and even certification of a person who helps them that they call a swamper. And all the rest is pretty much done by hand. And on more private lands, we do have more latitude in how we use chainsaws, but it's expected that people would still have those levels of certification regardless of where it is that they're working.
Yeah. So why is it just 2 weeks out of the year you can use the chainsaw on some lands?
Well, in lands in New York and also in some areas federally, they have, in New York we call it the Forever Wild Clause, and that you're not supposed to have any motorized vehicle or implement operating within that wilderness area. There's 2 weeks per year that they make exceptions for that. One is at the end of winter in May, and the other is just before winter. And that allows crews to come in and just kind of run through as hard as they can with as skilled and great a crew as they can to clean everything out. And there are exceptions that are made after hurricanes, after significant storms. Like, for instance, that ice storm we had that affected so much of southern and central New York. Just on one trail, the Burroughs Range in the Catskills, Charlie Goodall and Andy Garrison cut out 65 trees.
And, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and that was an exception period. So you can make exceptions given certain natural disaster sort of events. Rest of the time, we're using hand saws.
Wow. Unbelievable. And this is all for volunteering. You're volunteering your time.
Yes.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So once again, you can go to school for trail maintenance now. And I was reading a lot of stuff about that, the amount of people who wanted to do this job from 1992 to 2018 dropped by 49%. And the pay is not really that great. So they're trying to get that back into into the programs that they want to do in colleges and stuff like that to make people interested in doing this and to make a better place for us out in the forest. So I thought that was a pretty cool article to build up, especially with Steve here, who's going to be talking about that kind of stuff tonight. So it's pretty neat. So one other thing I wanted to chat about is that a 4-year-old completes the New Hampshire 48 footers. Yes. So 4,800 footers. That's crazy. As I was there this previous weekend, what an awesome accomplishment. You know, we've had the young people complete the 35ers here, but 48ers are a whole nother story. Like, just they're beast. You know, what do you think, Ted?
I think it's incredible. She started out before she was 4 years old, hiking with her mother primarily, I suppose, but hiking using her own power to get up these mountains. According to the article, her mother started hiking with her when she was just 2 months old, carrying her up in a child carrier. And then within a couple months, her and her mom had finished the initial round of 48, but albeit that this little lady was an infant at the time, so she was in the backpack. And then it goes on to say that their longest outing was a 45-mile variation on the Pemi Loop, which they completed in a single day.
Oh, wow.
So that's 45 miles. That's 45 miles. Mom with Lydia, the young infant child, in tow, doing 45 miles in a single day. So when you're out hiking this weekend and you're at like mile 15 and you're ready to start complaining, just think of those two and suck it up, right?
Yeah. So Lydia Pearson did the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire. And to be honest, you know, these are beastly peaks. You know, some of them gained 4,000 feet in just a couple miles. And apparently she finished on top of the most famous one, Mount Washington, 6,200 feet. And she's the youngest person to do so. And it's just so cool. Hopefully we'll see them on the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast and have they can show a chat of her, Lydia, talking about her favorite time, because, you know, seeing that picture of her on top of, it shows a picture of her on the Webster Cliff Trail, the Crawford Notch. I think I was pretty much there. She looks like she was on Pierce or something. And, I was there, and her smile is just huge. And to have that kind of enthusiasm at that young of age, just it puts a big, huge smile. My heart grows bigger. Just and to say that they did the 45-mile Pemi Loop in a day really scares the crap out of me, because, you know, I did that over 3 days and it was absolutely horrible.
That's a crazy amount of distance to cover in a day. I also note in the article, it says that Lydia looks forward to hiking because she gets to eat trail food that she wouldn't regularly be allowed to eat at home, like cookies, chocolate, and candy. She's also fond of singing songs on the trail and is frequently joined on her hikes by two imaginary friends, Lake and Reedy. So food, I guess, is a strong motivator. That's what I'm hearing.
And you should always bring a friend on a trip. It really helps kids, imaginary or not.
Yeah. Steve, have you done any in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I've done what they call the 111, all the peaks above 4,000 in the Northeast, and 6 rounds of the 46, 2 rounds of the 35. You know, so this, that, and the other.
Those are beasts for a 4-year-old to do.
Oh yeah.
So awesome stuff. So can't wait to hear more from Lydia. It was crazy to see some of the stats, you know, 4,000 footers, 230 miles. Usually it takes 80,000 feet of elevation gain. And then it says it took her, with her stats, took 308 miles with 105 feet of elevation gains, because she has smaller steps, number one. And sometimes her mother mapped out longer alternate routes to tackle peaks over multiple days. So I'm happy to say that this little girl is going to be having fun with the outdoors. So that's pretty cool. So I just, we'll go over really quickly. Just got the DEC Ranger reports. Oh my God. So the amount of stuff that has been happening up in the Adirondacks is absolutely insane. Like there was over the last 2 weeks, the amount of calls that were out there, broken ankle, lost person, a person that was off trail. It just goes on and on and on. And like July 15th, I think they got over like 4 or 5 calls from different areas. And I'm glad to say of that report, there was none in the Catskills. So,
yeah, well, obviously everyone's listening to this show and they're picking up on our tips and advice, and it's keeping them out of trouble. And it's given the DEC, you know where I'm going with this. It's given the DEC all that extra time on their hands. They started up their own podcast. So
exactly.
Don't be falling down just to stop them from recording.
So we're doing good
in their free time.
We're doing good. So keep being safe out there, everybody in the Catskills. So, all right. So thank you to the monthly supporters, Darren White, Vicky Ferreira, John Comiskey, Betsy Anderson, Denise Weiss, Vanessa Leong, Joseph Hayda, Jim C., Michael, and David. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Also, thank you to our awesome sponsors. Capture your love story against breathtaking backdrop with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst stunning landscapes in the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images that reflect your unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on the unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles Photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. I actually, when I was in the Whites, I introduced somebody to Molly, so hopefully they will do their little project with them up in the White Mountains. Also, discover the wilderness with Cheryl Brown Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoors experiences. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Cheryl Brown Project and unlock the great wonders of the outdoors. They have a couple of events going on. So on Sunday, July 28th at 7, there is a virtual campfire talk. Anyone can easily learn and be confident. So you got to RSVP, ask me for some info, and they got a bunch of other stuff going on. Check them out online. So it looks like I'm the only one drinking anything tonight. And Tad, what are you having? Coffee?
I'm having what's called a 3C. Have you ever heard of a 3C?
I have not.
No, it's Coca-Cola and coffee. The 3Cs.
What?
Yeah, it's
thank you, Steve.
Coca-Cola and iced coffee. Right here in one of my daughter's trusty Yeti cups. Nothing's better than using one of your kids' cups to drink out of.
Was this her suggestion?
No, it's something I've been doing for years.
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah. Wait, Steve, you making fun of me? What kind of guy are you?
He's a cool guy.
Well, how long do you?
Yeah, that's right.
It's true. Steve, you having anything to drink, sir?
No.
No, not even water. People are like water.
Yeah,
wow.
I drink a lot of. This is less interesting than his drink, but I aim to drink a gallon a day. That's half ice, half green tea, and half water, and that's pretty routine. Not that interesting, but that's what I drink most day long.
Sounds healthy as heck. So I'm having a good ginger ale and Rev Spirits Conundrum. So Rev Spirits, they were on a previous episode, one of my early episodes, I think like episode 16 or stuff. And they have some really good spirits located in Jefferson. They have it up in Hunter and stuff. It's really good stuff. So previous hikes. Steve, what do you got for us? I know you're out and about every time. You have been some crazy places. What are some of your previous hikes you want to talk about?
Oh, I have a couple friends that we go down doing a lot of rock scrambles in the Catskills. Has been our main events of recent. And, looking for some set of cliffs or ravines that we can pull off a map and go find out what they're like when we get there. And so that's at least one day a week just doing that. And then getting ready for a trip for a trek in Peru to Machu Picchu over the Salton Day trek. So with our group, we have a going with that I'm coordinating. We're doing a lot of just warm-up hikes for that. And but we're always out, whatever. It's such a great area around here. There's just such an enormous amount of opportunity within a day trip of here that it's all, hooking up with people. So, well, what do you feel like today? Well, I haven't done this in a while. Let's give that a shot.
Is that you're always hooking up with Mike Gross, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's Mike
and Jim Hopson, and they're the two leading instigators, and they're up for anything, anytime.
Yeah, James, I've actually hiked with James and Mike both, and Mike's a beast, and James just wants to explore anywhere and anywhere possible.
Yeah. He gets very excited about anything with water and slides.
Yeah, it's geology. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what else is happening that day. If it has water and a slide, he's just talking about it for the next 2 weeks.
Tad, maybe James and Danny should hook up.
If they haven't already. Sounds like a classic combination.
Yeah. That's fantastic. So what was the last, did you go in the gunks a lot, Steve, and did some crazy scrambles, correct?
Oh, kind of go through periods of hitting up different areas and doing everything around them. Or earlier this summer, we were down in the gunks more. Did quite a few things down there. But we've also been up in Vermont and a lot of things up around the Catskills. And then when things cool down more in the fall, we'll get up north and hit up some of the slides up in the Adirondacks. But it's just kind of wherever there's a set of cliffs that I'd like to see what it's like when you get there, we go check them out.
Nice. Off-trail explorer. I like that. So, Tad, what about you, sir?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of hard to follow that up. So in my quest to redline the Catskills all trails, I set out to Jenny Notch this weekend, did 13 and a half miles. Yeah, 13 and a half miles from Jenny Notch to Ashland Pinnacle. Part of that's on the long path.
Right.
And it's just different terrain from the high peaks. It's very pleasant, generally easy going, rolling over one knob or knoll to another. But it's remarkable the fact that there is little to no foot traffic evident on these trails. There's no trash, really no sign of any high traffic or anything like that. I also note that there was virtually no water to be had along the entire route. Yeah, you're basically, once you set out from Jenny's Notch, you do a couple road crossings, but you're not really crossing any streams or any rivers. But it was a fun hike. I enjoyed it tremendously, took a lot of snapshots. I only saw one person, a trail runner, and it was fun. Had a good time. So, Stosh, did you get out at all? I mean, did you do anything over the last week that you want to share with us?
I can't. I don't think I can do the whole thing in 1 5-minute session. So, we'll next week. I have planned talking about that whole. I did the presidential traverse.
The Pemi, yeah.
No, not the Pemi, the Prezi. The Prezi. So did you do it with a 4-month-old strapped to your back? Not like that woman, Jesus.
No,
I didn't see any of that, but I did the presidential traverse, which is like a 21 mile hike in the New Hampshire. Mostly, like I would say 85% of that is above tree line. And wow. I got to say, this was probably the greatest experience in my life. I've never gotten this. It's just wonderful weather, wonderful like people to be with, just everything clicked together. And I wish I could talk about it right now, but it would seriously take hours to talk about it. So next week.
Yep. We're glad to have you back, and everybody, I guess, has got to tune in to episode 134 to get the inside scoop on Stosh and the presidential traverse.
It was magical. I couldn't say. Everybody, There were so many people out. The one thing you talked about, you saw one trail runner. I got to admit, trail runners suck. Like they are annoying.
I didn't hear that, Stosh. What did you say about trail runners again? What was that?
They suck. I don't know if it's just
is that a capital SUCK?
100%. So I don't know if that was just the being on New Hampshire, and they had an event going on, but it seemed like every time they were behind us, they didn't say like, on your 6 or, hey guys, I'm behind you or anything. They would just feel like they're on the back of your ear, and they would breathe and expect you to move out of the way. Like a mountain lion. Yes. 100%. Definitely. And I was just disgusted by like every time it would just be like, they wouldn't be like on your 6, like, come on. Like, and then I would turn around, or like runner behind you. I would turn around and I would respect that. But no, there was like that. And then I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. It sounds like when you do that traverse, the 11th essential is a side view mirror. Oh yeah. So you can see that should be the 11th essential. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, well, look, we have nothing against trail runners and folks who, carry on at a accelerated pace over the mountains or the trails, but everybody needs to be polite and courteous. That's true. And I met, to be honest, I couldn't even tell you how many people that were on the trail. Mm-hmm. Just even the secluded part going from Madison Hut to kind of like the base of Mount Washington. Mount Washington, it starts to get crazy, but yeah, it was just, there was one part I called the Hillary step of New Hampshire, of the Northeast. I saw that post. It was so many people. There was like 30, 40 people trying to get up this one area. And I'm just like, let's wait right here for like 20 minutes and then we'll get going. It was crazy, but I don't blame them. I don't freaking blame them. It was a beautiful weekend. Yeah. And I can't,
that last weekend, I'm sorry to interrupt, but a 9-year-old, her name's Maybe, did the presidentials traverse, and the next day did the Franconia traverse.
Oh man, shame, Stosh, shame.
And when they got done and got back to camp, she went for a run.
This is 9 years old. Yeah.
9 years old.
Oh man, she doesn't have knee problems. That's why.
Somebody's got to buy that 9-year-old a smartphone. She's got too much time on her hands.
Wow. Unbelievable. So if that was this week, I wonder if that I don't remember seeing a 9-year-old, but
she was so fast. She went right by you. You didn't even see her.
It's probably one of them that jumped over me when it's just like, and then was just like, hey, I'm trail running. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, she also comes to your waist, so you might not have noticed. She just went right by.
Yeah. You might have been like in such, anaerobic shock from carrying all that weight and hiking, at such an elevation that your surroundings were rather foreign to you. And,
true. Plus I'm that whole hike, that whole trek I was in the moment of just enjoying the views, enjoying the wind blowing on my face, 20 mile per hour, constant winds. I was just like, I found myself sometimes just standing there with my eyes closed, and then my team would be, like 300 yards ahead of me and like waiting for me. I'm just like, don't wait for me. Well, I'm just enjoying this.
So it sounds like one of those moments you had your eyes closed is when the 9-year-old whizzed by.
Yep. Just part of the wind sound.
That's what I'm hearing.
Awesome. So awesome, guys. Glad everybody gets out. Soon we'll talk about Steve getting out on a long path. So Catskill News, volunteer, 3500 Club, Catskill Trail Crew, Catskill Mountains Club, Visitor Center, Jolly Rovers Trail Crew, Brother Mountain Fire Tower is doing some volunteering efforts. Steve, does the long path do specific like volunteering, or do you have to go through the New Jersey Trail Conference?
Well, different sections of the trail are managed by different kind of small clubs that we're all associated with the New Jersey Trail Conference. And if you become a formal maintainer, that we're all members of the Trail Conference and are supervised by what they call their long distance trail crew coordinator. And but for the section that of a club that I'm a part of is called the Long Path North, and manage a larger area than they do. They're what we call the volunteer service agreement with DEC covers Schoharie, Albany, and Schenectady counties.
Okay.
So we are the people responsible for maintaining the trails in those areas. That DEC gives us assigns the trail to us, gives us direction about what they allow or don't allow, what they'd like to see, but they give us a lot of latitude in how we approach it. And and then we coordinate with them. If there are occasionally something that's a larger problem or a larger project than we can manage from our volunteers, we report it to them, and then they make choices with groups like the Trail Conference about whether to bring a professional crew in to manage a situation, such as after a natural disaster or something like that. But most of it we're managing, like for the 3 counties here, we're managing about 90 miles of trail out of about a dozen people.
Oh, wow. Jesus. So I also remember that there is a Facebook page called Friends with the Long Path where you guys post random stuff as well, right? You can check out on there.
Yes.
Let me add that to the ever-growing list because I like to, you know me. Well, I don't know if you know me, but I love volunteering. So,
yeah.
So definitely put that on there. Check out Friends of the Long Path volunteering opportunities. Also, if you want stickers, ask me. I'll send you new ones. I'll send you ones, and Camp Catskill will send you ones. Also, once again, I forgot to rate the podcast on any platform. We got 2 more 5-star ratings, so it was pretty cool. I actually liked it. Someone said something about like if you want to learn more about mountain lions and the Catskills, check out this podcast.
Definitely. I think we're becoming the renowned experts on mountain lions in the Catskills. And
they're all over the place. They're getting the book, but they're not in the Catskills. They're down in New Jersey.
Well, I think in part that's because, they just don't feel welcomed in the Catskills anymore. I mean, the DEC is not doing much, if anything, for them, not promoting their habitat. People are going out with bear spray. It's scaring them off. I think people need to go out. They need to buy from us. What they ought to do is just send in $25 to Stash or myself, and we'll mail you back $5 worth of mountain lion food for $25, shipping and handling included.
I heard it was the trail runners. They just kind of sat on cliffs and shook their head and
scared them off. Yeah,
well,
it's the trail runners that are scaring them off because they're running like right by those mountain lions.
No, it's not that. Don't be ridiculous, Stosh. It's trail runners are too thin and too lean. And if you're a mountain lion and you had the choice of eating like some thin, lean trail runner versus a plump and round hiker, which would you rather have? Obviously, the plump and round hiker. So I think that's the explanation.
And they don't move it.
Yeah, that's our story. We're sticking to it.
I agree. Also, B from Recovery Hike wanted me to mention that they are doing on August 17th a camp out. So check them out on Instagram, Facebook. Send them a message on recoveryhike@gmail.com if you want to be involved. Once again, B was on episode 125, talked about how basically recovering from any sorts of abuse through hiking was absolutely phenomenal, and it heals. So check them out. Recovery Hike. So, weather forecast for this weekend, as we've gotten on a phenomenal weekend. Oh, look at that. My weather forecast was located in New Hampshire. But, So, this is a weather forecast. Looks like I am going with Sugarloaf Mountain this weekend. It looks like this weekend is going to be absolutely phenomenal, judging by Tuesday's forecast. It says Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all clear. In the clear, highs of 63 to 72 degrees, lows down to the mid to low 50s the whole freaking weekend. No rain whatsoever. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, clear. Get out there, hike, volunteer, have some freaking fun. That's all I got to say. All right, so I don't have any history. I should have probably pulled up some history on the Long Path, but...
Yes, and as I remember, that was a fan favorite, so...
That's horrible. Yes, it was. Oh my God, I haven't done that in a very long time.
Yeah, our readers or our listeners are becoming like uneducated in Catskill Mountain history. We need to fill them up with some good history.
That was horrible. So, all right, I'm going to get on to the sponsors, and then Steve will get on to your interview. All right.
Okay.
All right. So discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is here to help every hiker from beginner to seasoned pros. We also carry a variety of unique Catskill souvenirs and gifts. Visit online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. Also discover beauty of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and Hudson Valley with scenic route guiding. Our expert guides are here to ensure a safe, unforgettable hiking experience tailored to your skill level. From breathtaking vistas to hidden gems, or if you're peak bagging or just the simple day hikes, we'll lead you to the best spots and back. Book your adventure today and explore nature's wonders with scenic route guiding. Check them out on all social media platforms. Also, mention the podcast. You can get 10% off. Use the code Mountain Lion. Also, embark on a transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, paddling, hiking, and even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today on anothersummit.org. Now, this previous trek up presidential range was done by Another Summit, so I can't wait to talk about that. So, phenomenal time. So, let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
So tonight, Steve Siegard joins us, and we're going to talk about the long path. I call him the long path extraordinaire. We're going to do long path 101, basically, and we're going to hopefully get people involved with the long path. So, Steve, welcome to the show, sir.
All right, thank you.
I know you've been already talking for almost 40 minutes, so you already, I don't know why I welcome people 2 or 3 times to the show, right? It's weird. See, he even thinks
it gets under your skin as it goes on, and oh yeah, I'm here.
Well, let's not try to figure that out tonight.
Yeah, right.
Although we're making great time. We're like 36 minutes into this, and we're already to the guest. So
right. Usually it's like we're like an hour and 12 minutes in. So Steve, why don't you give a little background about yourself? You know, kind of like where you started out, where you live, stuff like that, and then how you progressed into the Catskill area.
Sure. Well, I live in the Helderberg Mountains, southwest of Albany, and in Clarksville, New York. Famous for our caves around here and waterfalls and all the many preserves in our area that are particularly managed by the Bohawk Hudson Land Conservancy, a wonderful organization. And sort of very convenient place because they're only 2 hours from the high peaks, an hour from the Northern Catskills, an hour from the Berkshires, an hour from Vermont. So we got a little bit of everything going on. And I started hiking with my grandfather. When I was a kid, we had the Finger Lakes Trail, went right on the edge of our property, and he got me started hiking on that. And then he and my father taking me up Mount Marcy when I was 12. And then there was a big gap until as an adult and after college, and got to be about 30 and decided it was time to go back into the woods. And I got involved with the Albany chapter of the Adirondack Mountain Club, and was very appreciative of the mentorship that they provided for a lot of things, particularly about learning the routines of winter hiking. And from there, got involved also with the 3500 Club, doing trips in the Catskills. But I was the trail coordinator for the chapter for the Adirondack Mountain Club back in the mid-90s for about 10 years. And from that, we had one of our members of our trail committee, Fred Schroeder, a very famous person in our area at the time. He was part of the group that grew the long path from where it originally ended at the Elm Ridge parking area on 23 outside of Windham. And in about a 4-year period, they built over 80 miles of trail going from there in Windham up here through to Altamont, and from there on and off road all the way to Northville. And as Fred had cancer, and he was looking for somebody to pick up his legacy after he was done, he kind of drafted me and another person to take up the mantle from him. And we got involved with the Long Path North Committee. So that was about 25 years ago. And really just, even after 25 years, it's such an extraordinary group. I still feel like I'm the new guy in the group, and I'm still learning from them every time we get together. But from there, developing into from just volunteering as on their different projects to then becoming the coordinator for Albany County, and from then developed into the role I have now, partly because Andy's role got a little too big. And as he was once honest with me, my primary skill set that got me drafted was I knew how to take part in a Zoom meeting. So somebody else would have it if they had known how.
So that's why Gary or Andy didn't want to talk to me, because he knew you would.
Well, he's
Makes sense.
so busy. The guy's quite a jackrabbit. He's just, I don't know how he sleeps at night. He's always so busy.
Yeah.
But so it's been a great experience getting to know other parts of the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference as part of my current role. And the other trail crews around, particularly the trail crew that Charlie has and that Charlie and Andy manage. They came up last summer with a crew and helped me with the reroute in Partridge Run. That was important. If I hadn't had their help, we probably wouldn't have finished it. And like Andy was up last weekend helping us with a project in Altamont where we're going to move the official end-to-end for end-to-end backpackers from Thatcher Park down to Altamont. And we're building a trail off the escarpment right now. We had 23 people there last week.
Nice.
Working on the trail. And we've appreciated Andy being a part of that with his expertise with rock work and benching and things of that nature. But yeah, so then it's always about trying to support the volunteers that are out there. We have, a lot of places downstate, a volunteer might manage 1 mile of trail. Up here, if we did that, we have about 10 volunteers, so that would mean 80 miles weren't getting covered. And that we have extraordinary volunteers that go well above what's expected, and besides whatever they've been assigned, they're always working on other people's and backing each other's up, and always there at a second's notice to try to go out and do what they can. But one of the things you find with that level of high motivation, first off, to have that usually requires you're being retired, like I am myself, so you have the time that you could devote to this. But along with that, also at any one point, a lot of us are injured. So we're always trying to back each other up with who's got the back problem, who's got the knee problem, whatever the family issues that are going on with taking care of other family members. And so we have a real gaps at times for being able to cover the whole trail. And so we're always looking for new people that can come in, and particularly younger people that are less injury prone or whatever, and getting them started and getting them to love the trail so that 25 years later they could be in a role like mine and mentoring other people.
Wow. So Steve, do you have any kind of stats going into the long path that you could share with us and the sort of history of the long path? Are you well acquainted with that?
Yeah, somewhat. Well, currently there's about 240 people that have officially completed the trail end to end, which is defined as coming from the near the George Washington Bridge with the subway there at 157th, all the way to Thatcher Park at Old Stage Road. But then a lot of people have actually continued all the way up to Northville, which is another 70 miles. And we've had, in any particular year, there's about 10 to 12 people that finish the trail. And then during COVID, that about doubled. It went up into the 20s for that. And this year, we're on track probably to be actually higher than that. So things are starting to pick up steam for how many people are finishing the trail. And we do find that a lot of people will get started with it downstate, and they make it up into the Catskills and get that far. And then often, kind of like can happen with the long trail in Vermont, it gets so far for driving and the logistics get complicated that a lot of people will end up not making it much farther north than the Catskills. But we do have people that can help out with the logistics up here. And like I've helped people with spotting their vehicles or getting them to trailheads or getting information about where could I stay or things of that nature. And supporting people all the way up through on the trail. But as far as when the trail started, it originally was a concept that was started by Paul Schaefer back in the 1920s. And he had the concept of a trail that would go from the city to wilderness. And he had the idea of 88 points. There were historic points that he had plotted out that went from New York City to Whiteface Mountain. And he suggested, he put them all on a map and suggested that people just get there however they can by, as he put it, dead reckoning by compass. That would be quite an exploit. But
yeah.
A little easier now with better roads and driving conditions for people to come to a lot of these, though a lot of those 88 points are, while they're wonderful, are also a number of them are on private land where there's, the landowners that ask for respect of their privacy. But there is a site in Warren County has a website that has the listing of all the 88 points and a lot of information if somebody wanted to visit them about how to get to them, including the access issues for allowed access. But then back in the late 20s, they started getting more of the concept of actually building a trail with it and developing out of a poem by Walt Whitman called The Long Brown Path. And that led to the trail being developed from the George Washington Bridge in Fort Lee up to the Elm Ridge parking area on Route 23 in Windham. And there was a lot of areas of that, like are often with different long trails, on and off trail with road walking and on and off of private land. And it's always been a matter of how we can get the trail more on land and off road over time. And there's been tremendous work that's been put into that. And Andy is actually the head of the committee that is kind of charged with how to preserve the trail into the future with getting it more and more off trail onto either private land with easements that we've purchased or agreements that will allow us to be there or in whatever possible on public land. But then back in 1989, there was the concept of moving the trail farther north than Windham High Peak Trailhead. And a group of about 8 people, Fred Schroeder being one of them, worked on building the trail in about, from the time they started to about 94, about a 4-year period, they built about 70, 80 miles of trail.
Wow.
And to me, that's like building the pyramids. That's just a phenomenal accomplishment. And been working on, ever since then about how to get the trail more preserved on public lands and off of road and more working with, right now from just Schoharie, Albany, and Schenectady County, we have 40 landowners that the trail crosses their property, and we're always working on our relationships with them, making sure that the trail is working within their needs and interests and the goals that they had, and even allowing it on their property, and how to preserve it more, such as people will sometimes bequeath the land that the trail is on to the trail conference for the trail to be protected in perpetuity, or gift us easements, or provide with their relationships access to other landowners that would help coordinate for going through their properties. So it's a real group community effort. It's more than any one group of just volunteer maintainers. It takes you're probably talking across the trail hundreds of people that are involved in trying to keep the trail running and preserved, and to be there ever more into the future for people to use.
Awesome. So 357 miles that it goes all the way to Thatcher Park, and then it's gonna hopefully be continued all the way up to Whiteface was the dream, right?
Right. Right now it goes as far as Northville. That if you ever went to Northville, they have this large wooden arch that it's just an absolutely beautiful structure. And it has on the arch, it both memorializes the Long Path and the Northville Placid Trail.
Cool.
And that is the terminus for the Northville Placid Trail as well. So then you could go from the Long Path and join with the Northville Placid Trail, and that would get you all the way to Averyville outside of Lake Placid. And then there's still plans for how we could even go from there farther up to not only Whiteface, but to the Canadian border.
That sounds fantastic. Once again, almost like the Vermont Long Trail and the Cohoes Trail up in New Hampshire and stuff like that. We need to get that done. That's awesome. Phenomenal.
One of the things I'd like to know is, so it's the Long Path. It's almost 350 miles. What's camping like along the Long Path?
Well, that's a great question. It's easier in certain sections of it. Of course, in the Catskills, you have more access to lean-tos. Mm-hmm. Below the Catskills, a lot of it is in state parks like the Schwagunks and Harriman and areas like that. Now, Harriman has lean-tos that you can stay at. The Schwagunks, not as many. But then there's the Skennemonk Ridge that it goes through, and a variety of other public areas. But when you get north of the Catskills, it gets a little trickier because it's more on private land than it is on public. Mm-hmm. And it sometimes in and out of kind of areas that are designated more like such as Partridge Run is near us. That's more a hunting area that they don't have as much access to camping. But it's one of the things we try to provide people coming through is access to where could I stay, and that we have different landowners and even like in Middleburg, there's a laundromat that will let you stay behind their laundromat, and so different places that we know of that we can coordinate for people for staying.
So the arrangements for camping or sleeping over vary over the entire length of the Long Path. Is there somewhere where I can online look up where I can camp and where I don't have access to camping overnight?
That isn't developed as of yet. It's a little easier for the areas that are going through state parks where you have the access to lean-tos.
Yeah.
But for the areas more to the north, we're still kind of developing the inventory of that. And some of that is also based on what are, for private landowners, how open are they to it? What's their experience of it? Do they want us to kind of vet somebody for whether we feel like they're appropriate for it? Which, if somebody's coming through from downstate, we're probably not going to know them. We can ask them questions. And we're trying not to make this start to feel like big government or something, that it should feel easy. But we're I completed the Finger Lakes Trail, and they had a list of, such as you're saying, maintainers for each section, and a catalog of information that each maintainer had about where you could stay. We're not there yet. I'd say we're probably a few years yet in developing that for this more north of the Catskills. Mm-hmm. So the best thing is for people to just ask us, and we give them the best information we had, including where are the stores that you could do for doing, getting supplies, doing drops, who could help you with access for car spotting, or for what landowners are open to having you camp. But right now we don't have an online tool that has all that information in one place.
Gotcha.
Not yet, but you're working on it. That's amazing still.
Yeah, I would hope we could have it in 3 or 4 years, but I know that it's something that it's the kind of thing that you want it to develop without feeling forced on people. Yeah. And I think that there's growing enthusiasm for it. Would be that a lot of landowners have had very good experience with hikers on their property, and when they had people that camped on their property, that it's gone fairly well. There are exceptions that happen to that, where we had sections that were closed. The one that was an extremely popular section up here, a landowner had, where a trail came off his property, he had stored a lot of farm equipment, and someone didn't understand it was his property and made formal complaints about it. And things like that, those kind of misunderstandings can lead to losing access to something.
Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of spots and sections, outside of the Catskills, because I'm assuming our listeners are very familiar with the Catskills, what sections of the Long Path would you recommend as having the best views?
Well, it depends on the areas. They call it picture perfect Schoharie County on purpose. It's just it's a beautiful place, and some of the more famous areas north of the Catskills for views are like what's called the Middleburg Cliffs that the trail goes over, and Vroman's Nose, and they're probably the two most famous areas. But even that areas up here in Partridge Run, out in Albany County, and the trail we're building right now along the escarpment in Thatcher Park is going to rival things that are in the Schwagunks when it's finished. It's just a fabulous trail.
Nice.
So you don't have as jam-packed the views as you do in the Catskills or the Schwagunks or something like that, but there are still a lot of very, very nice areas up here.
Yeah, and that's just the north spot. Like we got Long Path goes through Devil's Path, Catterskill High Peak, and down below that. So, and down through Wittenberg, right around Wittenberg. Yeah, so I mean,
down through Phoenicia, Mount Tremper. And the Schwa, where it goes through the Schwagunks, and down through the Skennemonk Ridge and into Harriman. It's all fabulous areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Steve, what do you find special about the Long Path? To me, of course, it means going through the different parts of New York State, like then hopefully and beyond. What do you think about that?
Well, first, by comparison, like when I did the Finger Lakes Trail, which at that time was exactly 555 miles, I wondered how they pulled that off. But it was mostly a mix of going through farms and state forest, but not quite the same kind of mix that we have with the Long Path. Mostly people think of the state park land that it goes through, but the part that I find the most special about it is all the parts going through people's private land that they've, allowed us this special privilege to go through, and look forward to our coming through. And and have been such a help to us that it's just such a privilege to be able to do that. And it's not something we take for granted, that these people are only doing it out of the kindness of their heart. Nobody's paying them. They're not getting anything out of it other than, maybe they get a trail across their land and they like to hike too, but they don't have to allow us on it. And there's just such a tremendous sense of privilege that comes with all of these private people that are allowing us to come across their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And through the Finger Lakes Trail goes through some extraordinarily rural areas. Parts of western New York are some of the only remaining designated frontier country east of the Mississippi. But there are parts of the Long Path that felt more rural to me than the Finger Lakes Trail did.
Wow.
And farther from a road and more wilderness. And so there's just a different quality to it with that. And it isn't all, to the north, it isn't all about big mountains. It's more about such a variety of experience.
Mm-hmm.
In the Catskills, I don't know how much even people notice that they're on the long path unless they're trying to do the trail, that the peaks themselves get all of the attention. When you're up here, it's more about this is a very different experience being on this kind of a trail.
Mm-hmm. Well,
nice.
That's an interesting take from a fellow who started off the night by telling us of these rock scrambles and ravines and slides that you get into, and we're seeing the mellower side of Steve. But let's swing back into that out of bounds adventure seeking side of Steve, and tell us about those areas of the Long Path that you consider to be the most difficult, most technical parts. Again, though, outside of the Catskills, if you will, because I think we all know what's going on in the Catskills.
Well, they're technical probably wouldn't be the first word that would come to my mind. It's more about, there's not a lot of technical areas up north of the Catskills, as in needing significant climbing skills or that the average hiker couldn't manage, that in most areas that kids and families couldn't manage.
Mm-hmm.
It's more maybe the exception to that would be the Middleburg Cliffs, that particularly depending on the conditions there, it's not a really high set of cliffs. It's a couple 100 feet, but it is a technical rock scramble that if people ever show pictures of it, you can't imagine how a trail went up it. But and in the winter, it can be very icy.
Mm-hmm.
But once you're up on the escarpment, there is just an incredible view over the valley. And they used to have, it's a good example of, what's different with different sections. They used to have a long string of Christmas lights that went tree to tree down the escarpment. And they were powered by a solar-powered battery. And you could see them at night. Unfortunately, the string is kind of deteriorated. It doesn't work anymore. But I think probably people would less about a technical aspect than I just wonder where I'm going. I've never been up in an area like this. This is a whole new experience for me. It's just so different than other parts of the state up here. And then there's just the logistics that you can get so far away from a village that there's a little bit more involved in the planning than there is if you're hiking the trail more in the Catskills or downstate.
Got it.
With that, we can see the Long Path by the blue blazes, right? They're blue, right?
We call them teal.
Teal blazes, right?
Green. Depends on which store color match the paint to what it's called.
Yeah, right. We got to get that. We got to get a woman to identify that because it's like a teal
now,
blue
Stosh, please.
Mint with
more
a hint
sensitivity.
Of green. So I mean, like you said, the past, like 5 to 10 years, it's been very successful in the long path. I mean, we recently saw Kim go through there, Kim Levinsky. She did the fastest no time for a woman's pace, and it was phenomenal. Dominated. We got Tom Walsh doing his long path fundraiser
today.
Yeah, he did. He finished.
Yeah, third time.
Wow, his third time doing the long path. That guy lives up near me, and I just can't get enough of him. I got to get him on the show. He is such a riot.
He's a real character. Yeah.
Yep. So Tad, maybe the week after that, we'll get my buddy Tom on here. We'll have a chat. You guys will mix in well. So
Tom's also a great resource in that anytime he hears somebody is up here hiking the trail, he wants to be helping them.
Nice.
And he just does a tremendous amount of volunteering with people coming along the trail.
Yeah, it's grown popular, which is good. We need that because, the dream was to extend it all the way up to Canada. And that sounds like a fantastic dream to have that go from New York City all the way up to Canada, to have another long trail of Vermont, co-host trail of New Hampshire. And to have that in New York State would be great to see somebody go from the depths of New York City, one of the most beautiful, craziest places in the world, all the way up to Canada and the lakes of the 1,000 lakes of New York. So it would be amazing to do that. So we're always improving on the long path. Can you talk about your most recent improvements with the long path that you guys have done?
Sure. Well, one of our challenges, and certainly one that Kim ran into, is sometimes to get it off the road, you end in a field. And in a field, it needs mowing. And that is one of the larger challenges up here about how to keep the trail mowed. The president of the Long Path North has a DR trimmer mower that he mows over 10 miles of trail on his own 2 to 3 times a year.
Wow.
And the guy's in his 70s.
Wow, crazy.
His name's Mark Traver. And there's another guy in Altamont who was up there yesterday, and he has a very bad back and bad knees, and he loads his garden tractor in the back of his truck and brings it up here and mows the trail. And while I don't know how he has this whole scientific method he's engineered about how to get it in and out of the truck without ending up in the hospital. I've tried. I remember one particular day last summer, this 1 mile of trail with me and a push mower, and it took me 3 hours mowing a path down through that. So
wow.
That's one of our challenges, is how to get it into the woods and off of farm fields. So that's one of the challenges we're always looking at, and that requires different. Farm fields are probably second easiest to roads for getting access to, but we really need to get them under the trees, where first off, it's just a different experience hiking in the woods than through a field. Mm-hmm. But it gets us out of it. As Andy says, we want to get out of the mowing business.
Yeah.
But then also trying to, we're always working on getting it off road. There's a 13-mile section down in Orange County right now that we're able to get off roads. So it cut it from 13 miles of road walking to, I think it's 3 miles of trail in the woods.
13 miles of road walking?
Yeah.
Wow.
Down near Wurtsboro. And we just had a section down in Schoharie County that we were able to get off road by the Trail Conference purchased a parcel of land that allowed us to get it off the road and into the woods. The Trail Conference they don't really have a fund for this, that occasionally they'll have land that is either donated to them or that they have money that's left to them in people's estates or something, and they may use that to buy a property. That property then preserves the trail for that section. They then may subdivide that, say it has a house on it or something, and they divide that off, sell that, then use that money to buy another section to protect the trail. or try to then sell that section that they bought to the state, who then provides money to them where they can go and then buy another section. So it's this kind of slow leaping forward from project to project based on what the available resources we have at the time. And also working with our local conservancies like the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy has been an incredibly important resource. And that they're currently working to try to help us in Altamont with access, the purchase of some land that's available right now that the trail might be able to go through to come down into the center of Altamont.
So of the 358 miles, more or less, how many of that is road walking?
Oh, I don't have an actual figure for that. I know if Andy was here, he would. He'd know it right to the 10th of a mile. But my guess is that if you went back 10 years ago, it would probably be somewhere around 60 miles of it that were on road. Out of the, so you're talking approaching 1/7 of the trail, or 1/5 rather. And it right now, I'd say that's probably cut in half.
Nice.
But that's if you're including all the way to Northville. If you're only including up here to Thatcher Park, it's probably down more, at this point, more like 20 miles.
Wow.
So at that point, out of 357 miles, it's a much smaller percentage than it used to be.
It's a difficult task to achieve, but definitely to figure out where to bring it, to ask people, if they can bring it on their property, and these people are not. Wow, that's difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, but 30 miles of road walking, really isn't all that bad, all things considered. And sometimes after a long day, hiking on trails over rocks, roots, and whatever else is in your way, a few miles on the road isn't such a bad deal.
Well, it gives variety.
Yeah.
And a lot of the road walks are very nice. It's just that we'd always be preferred to be in the woods.
Sure.
Yeah.
But all long trails go through this issue. It's, if you were the PCT, the AT, the long trail, we all go through these kind of situations of, it's just a perpetual evolution of the trail to get more and more of it into the woods.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's great for the improvements and stuff like that. It's really good to see that it's going in a good direction.
So, Steve, we kind of covered a little bit about the camping aspect of hiking the long path, but is there any particular tips or pointers you have for somebody who's going to through hike the long path?
Well, the first thing would be to ask a lot of questions, and the best place to do that as a start is the Facebook Friends of the Long Path page. There's just, besides people such as Andy or Tom or myself, or who might have more firsthand information about resources, there's where you can learn from the experience of all the recent people who have completed the trail, and everyone's asking questions and sharing resources. Like something I get asked on a perpetual basis is, where is there water between Plateau and Sugarloaf? And well, depending on the season, that's a pretty darn good question. But often be asking about camping, or where's a hotel I could stay at, or where is parking, and all of those things. That Facebook page, Friends of the Long Path, is a great place to start. That also people such as myself or Andy or Tom or Charlie Goodall can help people get connected with other people that are working on the long path, or give you firsthand information about this person said they had a good experience here or doing this or that. So that's always a good resource. So we can help connect you with other people that have recently done the trail, and have, that's one thing about, for us that are more managing it, you have one view of it. It's a different view if you're actively, section hiking it, it's a different experience.
Yeah. So if I was setting out, which I'm not, but if I was setting out to hike the long path as a through hike, and let's say I'm an average backpacker going to cover what you would consider to be an average distance per day, how many days do you think I should set aside?
Good question.
The average for an experienced hiker is in the mid-20s.
Good.
It's similar to the long trail, similar size trail is also about the same, about the mid-20s. If you think of like the North Placid Trail, which is about a third of the distance, there you can do that in 9 to 12 days. But one of the places that's also a great resource for when you're planning that out is on the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference site. They have an interactive map for the long path, and it gives you all of the point-to-point information, mile to mile, all along the trail, including broken up by sections. And we used to have a guidebook for this, but we found that the trail was changing so often that the guidebook would go out of relevance faster than you could get it produced. So it's actually, and then with everything being able to be more online now, that people don't depend on as much on written guidebooks, the interactive map and the narrative that goes along with it is a great help in planning things out. And each section, from New York City to Thatcher Park is 36 sections. And each section is roughly a day trip. But, I just said that you could do it in mid-20s, not 36 days. It's because, there are some sections that lend themselves more to doing more, others that, in the Catskills that would be more challenging to do more than in a section a day.
So because the long path starts off in New York City or on the edge of New York City, are there any, and I'm not making any assumptions here, but I'm just asking a question that some folks might have on their mind. Are there any sections or any areas of the long path where safety is a concern?
Well, I've never personally hiked the sections that are down in New York City, so I can't speak to what it's like. I've talked with people that are doing their end-to-ends that have done those sections, and I haven't heard that they're having any problems with it. So that's good news. Different experience walking on sidewalks and roads for a little bit, but at least that might be the first question somebody might have. At least it's not from the area there. What am I looking at coming through New York City? Well, I haven't heard of any other than it would be nice to be in the woods instead of on sidewalks and roads. I'm not hearing that anyone's having trouble.
That's all the experience, though.
Yeah. And Stosh wouldn't have to worry then about having all of his expensive backpacking gear stolen from him then.
I have expensive stuff. I'm weak. I have less expense. I mean, I'm not lightweight. I'm nowhere near lightweight, so I don't pay $400 for a 2-ounce tent. You're such a label guy.
Yeah, me either. I always have more pack than the rest of the group combined.
I mean, but
I'll even have friends that tell me we don't have to bring it because Steve and my wife Leslie, they'll have it. We don't need to bring it; they'll have it.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I count on the other person to pack it in.
Yeah, but then as far as other challenges, when it comes up through the Palisades, it's kind of paralleling the Palisade Parkway. I hear that is a lot of people feel like that's the most beautiful section of the entire long path. But it can also be some complications there with the traffic and trails and things of that nature. But it's supposed to be really beautiful.
Do you have views of the Hudson River when you're coming through that section?
Oh yes, yeah, very nice.
And I'm reminded that our friend Danny from Mighty Mischievous fame told us that the curbing along the Palisades Parkway has a special angle to it. Do you remember why it's angled, Stosh? So the little animals can get over the curbing. so they can walk across the road without getting hung up on the curbing. I thought it was for mobsters to be able to pull over with the Lincoln and pull Tony out of the trunk and then head back to Mama Maria's for some meatballs and pasta. But I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think there would be like safety issues. I mean, that's the whole experience going from New York City up to hopefully Canada soon would just be the whole. I mean, we're not hitting the western part of New York State, which is like waterfalls and open lakes and stuff like that. But still, you're getting kind of like the full experience. Yeah,
I'm just concerned with you're in that high density urban area. You get people that don't appreciate hikers and backpackers, and whether they're harassing them or, stealing, gear overnight or things like that would be something I would have a concern of. I know when my one daughter's out doing stuff, I try to check out where she's going and what she's into.
I haven't heard of any problems that anyone's had, though. So,
that's remarkable.
It's not been a difficulty. Where you can get into issues is more up here. Not so much a safety issue is that up here and around our area, people they don't know what to think about people from New York City. And are they going, as the local person, are they going to not be safe because of the hiker that's coming through?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so there can be hesitancy when you meet people that they're trying to figure you out while you're trying to figure them out. And mainly it's about if everyone is just showing respect to each other, everything goes smoothly.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of truth to that because, rumor has it a lot of these folks from New York City, when they're out hiking long days, if you can't give them a good pastrami sandwich at the end of the day, they get a little unruly. So
pastrami sandwich and a shot of something, Patron or something like that. So
sparkling water.
Yeah. Right. So now with the long path, the new improvements and stuff like that, what's in store? What do you think, you, Steve, and Andy, and all of them? What do you think in stores for the future for the long path? Are we going to have like a bigger, I don't know, turnout, but for more kind of like an advertisement from New York State about this? Hopefully, like support.
It would be great if in time that something like I Love New York picked it up as part of their advertising. I'd actually think at this point it would actually be a little premature for that. That the trail is still a little like a young kid that needs some development, and a little bringing it up in the ways of the world or something. But that there are still sections of it that feel pretty primitive and need more development than so that. More the average person coming through would have a good experience instead of, I didn't know that I was going to run into this high grass, or I didn't know that, there wouldn't be a store for the next 10 miles or something of that nature. I feel like we're in a process of getting there.
That's fantastic.
If you think of the fame of the Appalachian Trail, it certainly has, and it which quite frankly is not as old a trail as ours, but I'd like to rub that in. But it had one of the things that helped for developing the Appalachian Trail to what it is today is the amount of sponsoring organizations and volunteers. That it is a very, very well supported trail. Not just financially, but the amount of people working the trail. And that's what we need too. Like the Long Trail in Vermont has the Green Mountain Club, that is a very large organization that manages it. And that they do a very good job out with that. But I'm sure they didn't start out that way, that they started off as a slowly growing trail like we are. And so it can still kind of feel like we got a ways to go, but we're getting there. And things like Kim coming through brings a lot of attention. There was a guy the end of last winter, Sean Gitlin, who was the first person to do the trail in winter end to end. Ooh. And he brought a lot of attention to it. And then a few years ago, back-to-back years, a guy did a race event. Unfortunately, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he has the current record for the trail. And and he, besides just running it really fast, he did a great job of promoting things as he's going along and doing speaking engagements in places to teach people about the trail. And he gave a lot back that way. I need a lot more of that to get there. But I think a few years from now, it's going to look much more developed than it is even now. A lot of that, what will be the difference someone will experience? I think it'll be more off-road and more volunteers per mile, not that, across the miles, so that it can have more investment in every mile as you go along, instead of one person that maybe is trying to do this massive amount of work across a 10-mile section and can't really devote as much as the trail deserves for any particular mile.
So that's great to see it kind of like keep growing as we move along, as hopefully everything with trail maintenance and stuff like that, and hopefully more support from like New York State. I know the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference is involved, but DEC, and hopefully they will get more involved with building this beautiful trail that shows you the beauty of going from the lowest point of New York State all the way to the top of New York State up in Canada. I couldn't even imagine going beyond, like, up to Whiteface and then beyond the 1,000 Lakes and stuff like that. That would be stunning.
Yeah. Well, DEC is already, I just want to be clear, is already a great partner with us. We are, it's just that they're underfunded too.
True. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, part of why we end up with the contract to manage the trail is because they don't have enough staff. And for DEC to be an even more involved partner with us, it means they need more resources. But I would say overall that DEC has done what is in their ability and have been very helpful to us on a variety of things. It's just for both of us, so there's more we could do to grow into that relationship.
Well, hopefully we'll get this all thrown into one, and we'll get the ball more rolling on that. And it's great to hear that once again that we have extended this beyond Thatcher Park, and it's doing what the plan was. Back in, would you say, the 1920s is when they started this? Wow, yeah. Unbelievable! I had no clue about that history in the 1920s. This was Blossom. And I marked that down, the long brown path, which doesn't sound too appealing. That sounds a little... Yeah, right. Yeah.
Ouch.
I know.
Yeah, but on a positive note...
With some green and some flowers and pine tree, they need to finish the sentence,
But on a positive note, Steve, what you guys are doing is you're just preserving and maintaining this corridor for future generations. It might just be 10 to 20 people a year now finish hiking the long path from end to end, but 10, 15, 20, 30, 50 years from now, that number is likely to go up, and the areas around it will just get more and more developed, and this will become more of an uncommon, artifact from the past that's now been preserved.
Well, and a little aside, that Bill Gates is the largest landowner in the country, and they asked him, why are you buying so much land? He says, because they don't make it anymore. And that, with time, is going to be more and more the case, that it's going to be more, unfortunately, the exception experience about being outside of crowded urban, suburban areas and access to the outdoors, the woods, the country is going to take, moving from somewhere where you're comfortable and what you can expect to moving to something where you don't know what to expect. And but also appreciating that if we don't make the investment in things like trails like this, they may not be there for you to expect them.
Correct.
That trails, volunteers for trails are probably 90% retired people.
Yeah.
Part of it is we all have an investment in giving back from our hiking careers. Part of it is that we have the time, but with the aging of the population, it leads to fewer and fewer people that are in that natural group of people to maintain trails. We need to get younger people involved. And so, like when Fred was at his point where he knew he was passing, that he could pass it on to me, where at that point, I would, 25 years ago, I was in my late 30s. We need more people that age that can then grow through their lives and be ready to pick up the trail.
Yeah. Hopefully this will, like, people like Kim and Tom and stuff, and people like you and Andy can influence people, the younger generation, to take care of trails. It only takes so many hours to do something a year to do this, and I preach about that all the time. And that's what we need, is just people to just go out there and volunteer 8 hours of your life per year to help out, these certain sections. So once again, Steve, thanks for joining me on the show. Get Andy. You and Andy should come on the show and talk about this full on long path again, because Andy's been ghosted me ever since. So I'm glad you got to come on here.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Last thing, I like to talk about local places to eat and drink after you do some section of the long path or anywhere. What is your local favorite spot to go out to after, maybe hiking or doing something? What's your favorite spot?
For the long path?
I would say anywhere. What would you recommend?
Oh, in our area, the Maple Inn in East Burn is a great place.
Ooh, the Maple Inn.
Yeah, that's a family restaurant. It had been known as a German restaurant, Swickelbauer's, but that's probably the biggest happening place in our area is the Maple Inn. It's on Warner's Lake in East Burn. That's a great place. In Middleburg is Mrs. K's Kitchen, which is a small diner. It's just a wonderful place. Makes great pancakes. And then here in Altamont, there's Paisano's Pizza, which is a great place to go. There's a lot of little places like that. Here in Clarksville, we have a diner that has changed hands a few times, but it's now called Sun's Diner, and that's a good place for just getting something on. They don't have eat-in service, but you can get things there to take with you easy enough that are good. But probably our biggest place in our area is the Maple Inn. That's the most famous place for people to go to. Nice.
I'll write that down. It's Mrs. K's Kitchen once again. If you're up north, above there, do you have any suggestions in the Catskills that you like to go to?
Well, everyone talks about Westkill Brewery.
Of course.
That's a pretty amazing place. And then I always like it is Selena's Diner there in Tannersville. And particularly I like they have that 50 and over menu where multi-course meal for like $10. And there's the Mexican place there in Hunter. That's I'm forgetting the name of it. They're a really excellent place.
I forget that. I went there too.
Yeah, I know Selena's. I don't know of the Mexican place in Hunter.
I know what you're talking about. I feel so bad, but yes, I will write that down. So excellent. Thank you, Steve, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you also to the monthly supporters and monthly sponsors. Really appreciate you guys supporting the show. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to the Catskills as well, because your money just doesn't go straight to me or to the show. We're donating it back in the Catskills. So once again, I got a hold of the Catskill Center for that to see if it goes straight to the fire towers. I haven't gotten a direct response. So I want to get it to the fire towers. Maybe I'll just give it to the long path and see what they can do. So, but thank you, everybody who has donated so far. It's really appreciated. Thank you, one who is still listening. 133 episodes in, we get Steve Siegard here to talk about the Long Path 101. So thanks a lot, Steve, for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good night, and hopefully let's get together.
All right, great. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked, 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 wicked.